So one of those questions I keep asking myself is, when will I have enough retro? Because I keep buying these things, and I don't know, I still feel like I need more. I've probably got more money than sense, and I don't have that much money, so I really can't have that much sense then, can I? Anyway, yes. I bought another thing, and I bought this months and months ago, and it's been sitting in a box for ages until I've actually had the time to look at it. And I've just finished up a Spectrum project, so I thought, why not jump into another Spectrum project, I suppose. This is, of course, the Saga 1 Emperor aftermarket keyboard for the Sinclair Spectrum. And, yeah, I've wanted one of these for a while, really, but they seem to go for absolutely insane money. But this one came up for, I wouldn't say cheap, but it wasn't as ridiculous as some of the other ones I've seen. Although it does show a few marks and a few signs of age, and there's a little bit of damage, and we'll come to that in a minute, but that's probably why it was cheaper. But yeah, I love the look of it. It's certainly a good upgrade from the old rubber keys, which is kind of the point, I suppose. And it's got quite a nice feel to it as well. I don't think these are mechanical keys. I think there is a membrane under there, but nonetheless, they feel nice. You know, they feel a bit like a decent modern PC keyboard, the sort of thing you'd find in an office, maybe. Nice click to them. Yeah. Let me get you in a bit closer. So, it's not yellowed. It's looking pretty good. I mean, it looks really white on the camera, but it's for a white keyboard that's 30 plus, possibly 40 years old. It's in really nice, bright condition. Little bit of wear on the keys, but then the keys, the ledges on the keys are just stickers, so they will eventually wear out. Little bit cheapy, I think, but there you go. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Z and X, were maybe the favourite keys of the previous owner. I don't know, but they're pretty much worn blank. So maybe there was a bit of Daley Thompson going on, you know, bit of that. I don't know. That would be my guess. But it's a bit quirky as well, because there seems to be repeats of the same key all over the place, which is not uncommon, I suppose, in a couple of places. But see, we've got a symbol shift key there, we've got another one there. If I go over here, I've got another symbol shift key there, I've got another one there. And my personal favourite, there's two enter keys. But it's not like they're away from each other. They're literally right next to each other. One's above the other. Two enter keys. It's just, I've never seen that before. I'm not sure what that adds to anything, but yeah. And there's other sort of quirky keys over here. I mean, if it'll focus, I've got a load key. I don't know if that's just mapped to the J key. I suppose we'll find out if this thing works. Apparently it doesn't work, I've been told. It was sold to me as non-working, but that's part of the fun, really, isn't it? Yeah. What else? It's got a power LED, which I'm pretty sure did not originally come with the case. Somebody's drilled a hole, but that's fine. There's also an on-off switch. Again, I don't think that's original to the case. So yeah, it's not in bad condition, I suppose, cosmetically. I'm wondering if I can replace a couple of the stickers. Maybe I can design something and print it out on some sticky paper, because that's all they've done. Don't know. Might be something I can do in the future. Maybe somebody's already created them and I can just download the font. I don't know. I'll look into it. Anyway, yeah. So, like I said, it's an aftermarket keyboard for the Sinclair Spectrum, and it was designed to be very easily fitted as well. So all you would do is you would take your rubber-keyed Spectrum, you would remove the top, disconnect the ribbon cables for the keyboard, then the entire bottom case would then screw to the bottom of this, and then you would connect up the ribbon cables, and it's as simple as that. That should be all the installation that's needed. That is not what happened to this. And I don't know whether to be proud of the person who did this or utterly horrified, and I think I'm a little bit of both. Because the way this has been installed has done quite a bit of damage, but hey. Brace yourselves. Yep. So what the previous owner has done is said, well, I won't bother with the blower case. I'm going to dismantle the keyboard itself and stuff the circuit board into the keyboard. I'm amazed he managed to get it to fit, because that should not look like that. When I first got this, I thought I was missing a backing plate or something, but it's only through research I found out, no, the circuit board shouldn't be stuffed in the case at all. That's not right. The fact that they've got it in there at all is incredible. They've taken these two capacitors here, they've actually taken them off the other side of the board and put them onto the rear just to make it fit in. So it's kind of ingenious, I suppose. I mean, the thing must have been absolutely cooking in there. But then we've got this. So in order to get to the connectors, they've cut holes in the back of the case, and they haven't exactly cut them straight either. So if you have a look at that, that's probably the worst one. A little bit for the expansion, and then yeah, they've sort of hacksawed it out for the power as well. It's not great. In fact, it's a bit of a mess. I don't know how I'm going to fix that. I might need a bit of epoxy resin or something. Maybe I'm really not sure how I'm gonna tackle that. But yeah, they have jammed the circuit board right into the keyboard where it's really not supposed to go, and then they've just lodged on these feet, which aren't supposed to be there either. But hey, I mean, I was staring at this when I got it, and I thought, why the hell would someone do that? Because you're just making work for yourself. And then when I've looked a bit closer, I can see that this is actually, it's an issue 4S. So it's the Samsung derived board, and they typically, I don't know if they came in a rubber keyed version, but I've never seen one. So if they did, they're probably quite uncommon. But all the ones I've seen of the issue 4S came in the plus case. So that would explain why they didn't have a bottom case to screw to this. It doesn't, however, explain why they didn't take it back and say it's not compatible, but I don't know. I mean, looking at the way it's been fitted, I'm guessing that was a kid who did that, in which case 10 out of 10 for ingenuity, I suppose. They managed to stuff it in there. But yeah, I think we need to unstuff it. I should have a spare bottom case that I can use to mount this properly. And then I just need to worry about filling in these holes somehow. Yeah. I'll have to have a think about that. Anyway, it was sold to me as unworking, and I can well believe it. It's probably cooked to death in there. But I thought, well, you know what, just for giggles, let's plug it in anyway and just see what it does. Alright, let's see. I'll just assume it's not been composite modded. I'll just use an RF cable. I'll assume the polarity hasn't been played about with. Will that go in? Yeah. Get the power socket in. Good God, that's tight. Let's put the telly on and plug it in. See if anything happens. Right, it's plugged in. I'm just waiting for the telly to warm up. And nothing, but I've got no power light either, so if I give it I have a light. I have a very crude, iffy black and white picture, but it's doing something. It's not completely happy, but it's doing something. Okay, I'm going to switch it off at that point, and yeah, let's not push our luck. Okay, it's booting up to a copyright screen with a very iffy picture, so let's not push our luck. Let's just unplug it, and we'll dig into it a bit deeper. Alright, let's see if we can get that board out of there. Somebody's managed to hack it in there, so I should be able to hack it back out of there again. He says with limited optimism. Let's see. I mean, the case is bulging at the back. I'm not surprised, really. Because that ain't meant to fit in there. So I'm seeing 2 screws at the back. I'm seeing 4 screws holding the board in that should be holding the case in. And something's come away. Ah, there we go. Right, okay. Progress. You see, that's popped out. God, that's a bit of crude soldering, but if it works, I suppose. What have I got? God, they did well getting that in there. I've got 3 screws at the bottom. I've got 2 bolts there. What are they holding in? They're not even tight. Let's just take those out. Okay. Aha. But nothing's tight. Everything's loose. I suppose if you tightened it up, it wouldn't fit, would it? Right, can I move this keyboard out now? Yes. And let's see. I've got one membrane out. Looking like it's been chopped. It doesn't look in very good condition. And the other one. Okay, cool. That's that. And then the board is still held in with these little bolts. Nuts and bolts. Let's try and keep everything together. Oh. And it's out. Okie dokie. What the hell is that thing? Is that part of the keyboard? Do I need it? Does it come off? Seems loose. Oh, it's an adapter. Okay. Oh, so it is part of the keyboard. Right. Well, what's the advantage of that? Oh, it's got resistors in it. For some reason. Okay, fine. I'll assume that's part of the kit. Right. So that leaves us with the board itself. Obviously, those capacitors have been very crudely chopped out and sort of soldered off to the other side. I can clean that up. I can get rid of the heat sink. I can do a recap. Probably a good idea. And I'll do a composite mod. And we'll see if the we'll see if the board works a little bit better after that. Might clear up the picture. Okay, I'm going to zip through and do that now, and I'll bring you back when it's done. Okay, it's been a few days since I've had any opportunity to look at this, but I have now, and progress has been made. So your first thing you'll probably notice is I've found the bottom case for it, so that's been installed. What else? Yeah, the capacitors, I've changed all of those as well, so they're all brand new. Although I will point out that generally with the Samsung made issue 4S, there isn't so much the same capacitor problem that you get with the other Spectrums. In fact, when I tested all of these, they were all well within spec. So yeah, I mean, I've changed them anyway because they're 30 plus years old, but you may or may not need to. It's up to you, I suppose. The regulator's been replaced for a modern switching unit, so the whole heatsink's gone, so that'll keep the case temperatures down. What else? Oh yeah, I've done the composite mod. What I've done is I've mounted the capacitor in the can, so I've gutted that and put it straight in the modulator case. The reason I've done that is because when you fit this aftermarket keyboard, the bottom half of it gets very, very close to the modulator, and normally what I would do is I would seat the capacitor right along the side. There just isn't the room to do that in this case, so in fact I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is the bottom half of the case, and that would bolt in something like that, and there just isn't the room there. So, yeah. That's why I've done that. What else? Oh, yeah. You might have noticed that the CPU is now in a socket, and that's because I had to change it. It was working fine, so I recapped it. I did the composite mod. I put it on my diagnostic card, and it was telling me everything checked out fine, all the memory and what have you. I was getting a decent picture. But my div MMC wouldn't work. So, yeah, the processor, it had a dead M1 line. It's not uncommon. So, yeah, I've pulled that. But not a brand new one. I have got some brand new ones, but I'm recycling one off a spares board there, but it's good. So that's in there now, so it works with the div MMC. That's all fine. The board, as far as I can tell, is now finished. It's all in perfect working order. Frankly, there wasn't really a lot wrong with it, so I was expecting more of a challenge, really. Bottom half of the case, yeah, I've washed it, although you wouldn't think so to look at it. It's pretty stained, but it really doesn't matter. Don't need those rubber feet anymore, so they can come off. In fact, have I got a knife kicking about? Let's see if I can just get these off, because they're not supposed to be on there. Do you know what? I'm not going to do this around the camera, because I'm just going to take gouges out of it. Yeah, let me... Oh, actually, no, it's going. It's going. No, you know what? I'll whittle with that off camera. So that's that. What else? Oh, yes, the keyboard. So I think I noted when I took this keyboard off that one of the ribbon cables had been cut short. And that was probably an attempt to make it fit into the case better. So you've got this one here, which looks to be the original length, I think. That might be a bit short as well. And then you've got the other tail here, which is ridiculous. Ridiculously short. And I don't know... Now that this is back in its proper case, I don't know if there's enough length on that to actually plug onto the circuit board. In fact, I doubt it. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do there. I'll have to maybe get a bit creative. I don't know. I have had to trim a couple of mil off it myself, because when I looked at it, all the contacts had corroded away. I mean, there was no way it was ever going to work. So what I did is I cut it back to where the tail was still good. And I used a little bit of fine sandpaper just to rub away. There's like a little bit of a backing on it to get to the contacts, and I just had to clean that away. And what it did is it took off the backing and it took off the contacts as well, because those contacts are not metal. It's just conductive paint, that's all it is, and the whole lot came off. So that was annoying, so I had to cut it back another couple of mil. And this time what I used was a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and that's left the conductive paint on, and it's just taken this protective backing off. So I'm hoping that'll make a connection. I don't know. Other issue I've got, it's really weirdly designed, this. It looks like there's something missing. It looks like it should have a back plate to hold the membrane in place, but it doesn't. And I'm not missing one because I've checked photos of other people's online, and no, this membrane is literally just glued on, and that's all that holds it on. It's a bit cheap, it's a little bit nasty, I don't like it, and it's subject to this happening. Yeah, that's separated there. So that's not going to work very well, is it? So I think there's no other way around it. I'm just going to have to glue it, I think, which I really don't want to do, because I really don't think membranes for this are available. So if I screw it up, I'm stuffed. But yeah, I'm going to have to put some glue on that. Hopefully that'll solve the issue. As for the short tail, I don't know what I'm going to do about that yet. I'm going to have a bit of a think about that. But yeah, that's where we're up to anyway. I'll bring you back when I've made some more progress. Right, gluing is complete, and I've got good and bad news. I mean, the good news is the keyboard is connected up and it is responding. So if I can zoom in, I've gone through all the keys and everything seems to be working as it should. It's a little bit quirky, this keyboard, but we'll get to that later. It is functioning as intended and all the keys seem to work, so that's a win. So my little gluing job seems to have worked. Right, problem I've got is the short tail. I've got it plugged in at the moment, but that keyboard is not even close to the correct position where it would need to be for me to fasten the case up. So that tail is way too short now. So once this keyboard's mounted correctly and the case is mounted correctly on the board, that ain't going to reach. And it's not even out by a little bit. It's like inches short. It's ridiculous. So I've come up with a plan. I can't get the tail to reach the board, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to move the socket to reach the tail. So I've cannibalised, it's an old parts board, and that is a keyboard connector which I've soldered to a cable, and I'm going to desolder the one on this board and solder this in, so that gives me a bit of a flying lead for the keyboard connector, and that'll reach. I'm hoping that'll solve my problem. It looks like a bit of a dog's dinner, but it has been soldered properly, I assure you. It's just, I've wrapped it with insulation tape because I don't want it short into anything while it's in the case. But yeah, the things you've got to do. Yeah. Okay, hopefully that'll solve the problem and I can start getting this all back together. Right, well that's all done, and yeah, I might have made that a bit too long. In fact, it might be ridiculously too long. But hey, whatever. I'd rather have too much length than not enough. There's probably a joke there somewhere, but let's not go there, shall we? Okay, what else have I done? I've reattached the original LED. I'm going to use the same one. All I've done is I've tidied up the soldering and added a little bit of heat shrink. The switch is in. Yeah, I suppose we're ready to start fitting the case and the keyboard back on. So I've got some screws because the ones that were with it just aren't long enough. So I've ordered some extra hardware. Let's just see what we've got. A couple more of those. And I'm thinking, hopefully they'll fit through. Yes. In fact, what I'll do, thinking about it, is I'll put the screws through and then I'll put a nut on just so it holds the circuit board in place. Might be a better option. Let's do that. Right, so nuts are all in and that's holding the circuit board nice and secure, which is something the top half of the case would originally do, but since we don't have that, we have to do it our own way. So I've also put in, if I can show it, there's a nut holding the board down, and then I've put a separate nut on as well, and that's because when I bolt the bottom half of the keyboard case on, there's going to be a gap, and it's gonna, when you tighten it up, it's going to distort the case. So I thought if there's another nut underneath just to screw, so it's got something to screw onto, if you know what I mean, it'll stop that distortion. Alright, let's see how this goes then. So hopefully the screws are long enough to line up. That goes in. That's gone in just nicely, actually. And do I need to back those nuts off underneath? Yeah, slightly. Okay, let me just get that adjusted in. I'll just adjust these nuts at the bottom and then I can get the top nuts in and then we're good to go, I think. Yep, nuts and bolts are all in, and the screws, they're only just long enough, but do you know what? Just enough is good enough, so that's fine. So, keyboard, I suppose. Let's not connect it up yet. Let's just trial fit it where it needs to go, which is there. And let's work out what I'm doing with this tail. So there's my length. The connector is way too long, so if I can lose some of the length under there and just fold it in a bit, will that work? I think that'll work. Okay, let's get the other one connected and that out the way. Now that's in. Get this one in. Come on. Okay. Make sure I'm not putting any strain on that tail, because if I break it, I don't think I've got anything more to cut back on. So yeah, I think, are we going to get away with that? Can I tuck that in any further? We'll see how the top case goes, but let's get that screwed in. So if I remember correctly, got a couple of big bolts at the top. Bear in mind, it's been a while since I've had this. I took this apart, so I think this is how it went. Just line it all up. And then there were some fairly chunky screws that went underneath. Those in. And that one doesn't want to tighten up at all. I think it's been stripped, which might explain why it wasn't tight to start with. That's good. So it's had some, that one's got a good bite. Yeah, it's had some heavy-handed bugger, hasn't it, putting this together. Easy done. That one's not great, so let's not push it. And the bolts at the top, can we just nip those up? Hopefully they'll pull tight. Again, let's not push our luck, just get it kind of there. Good enough. You might remember this from the start of the video, and that was plugged into one of the ribbon cable sockets for the keyboard, and I've not refitted it because I really don't think it's got anything to do with this keyboard. I think it was simply fitted to give a good right angle connection when it was plugged in by whoever it was that stuffed it into this case. And it's not needed at all. It doesn't do anything. Those resistors that you see, they're not even in circuit. They do absolutely nothing. So I don't know what that's off, but it's not part of this keyboard and it's not needed. So I've not refitted it. Anyway, I think I need to start cleaning the keys up on this because they're absolutely revolting. But I don't want to do what I normally do, which is just like chuck them in the ultrasonic, because there are stickers on these keys, and I think if I do anything too harsh with them, those labels are just going to come right off, or if the labels stay on, then the ink's going to come right off. So I think I'm going to be very delicate with it, and what I might do is I might use a little bit of probably just a baby wipe, actually clean them up. So this job, take all the keys off. I think they just pull off. Very, very straightforward. So let's remove them. I'll get them cleaned up, and then that can go back on. Keys are all clean and back on, and yeah, that took a while because what I did is I took them all off, as you've just seen, and I wiped them all down with baby wipes. I wanted something really gentle to clean them up with because of these stickers. I thought if I put them in the ultrasonic or washed them in detergent, then maybe I'd lose some of the lettering or possibly the stickers altogether. So I had to be a little bit gentle with it. And the same goes for the back plate as well. So normally what I'd do with these is I'd spray it down with a bit of isopropyl alcohol and make sure it's nice and clean. Didn't want to use anything like that because, as you've seen earlier, the membrane is only held on by glue. And I thought, if I start disturbing that, I'm going to have another problem, aren't I? So yeah, again, it just got wiped down with baby wipes. Play it nice and safe. But yeah, it's all back together and it's nice and clean. All the keys are working. I've tested them all. They're fine. So that little modification is working just nicely. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So what next? I think I just need to get the switch mounted in the top case along with the LED, and then it can go back together, and then, well, we can actually look at how it functions and actually review it as a product now it's all working, I suppose. Right, well, the switch, that should go in nice and easy. The captive nut off. And yeah, somehow I've managed to tangle them up, haven't I? Right, let's just get that out of the way. And just go straight through the case, and I can put the nut on the end, and that's all that should need. Could have made the wires a bit longer, but I didn't, so I'll struggle. That's fine. And the LED, yeah, that was just a push fit, so that can just go back in again. What I'll probably do is I might just blob it in with a bit of hot glue, just so it doesn't fall out again. And that should be all we need. That's all nicely blobbed in, so that shouldn't move. And let's close it up. So, hooks in at the front, apparently. There it goes. And then we should just have a couple of screws at the bottom, and that's it. There we go. That's looking, well, almost identical how it looked when I got it, I suppose. With the exception that it's actually got the circuit board mounted properly now, and it's all fully functional. So yeah. So now it's all back together, we can have a look at it, how the manufacturer intended it to be used, I suppose. So yeah, first impressions, it's a really nice looking thing. The keys, as I said earlier, have got a really decent click to them. Although I don't think it compares to the DK-Tronics aftermarket keyboard. I think they've got far nicer keys on them, but that's me. What else? Yeah, so underneath, this is how it's now supposed to be installed. You would have your bottom half of your rubber keyed Spectrum bolted directly to the bottom of the keyboard. And yeah, it looks a little bit, I don't know, amateurish almost to me. But if it works, I suppose. On the back, yeah, if you just ignore those holes that were cut by the previous owner, but you will see that the gaps here don't close up completely on both sides, and that's not unique to mine. I've looked at pictures of other people's online, and they all seem to have this issue that the fit of the case isn't that great. And another thing, if you just ignore these holes for a second here, you've still got quite a considerable gap at the back between the aftermarket case and the original, and it just looks a little bit unfinished to me, a little bit unprofessional. So there's things I'm not really liking about this keyboard. I honestly don't think it was purpose designed for the Spectrum. I think they've had a generic keyboard that probably fits a variety of uses. And the reason I think that is inside there's a few extra mouldings, so there's like mouldings where you would be clamping wires and what have you inside, and that's not used on this, but clearly the same tooling was used for something else. So another thing is the sheer number of keys that repeat themselves on this keyboard as well. Again, I think they've got some sort of generic keyboard and they've just sort of adapted it for a Spectrum. I mean, the membrane might be unique to it, I don't know, but yeah, it seems like something that's been modified from something else. And the same at the bottom, it looks like they've just sort of jigsawed out a hole the size of a Spectrum to make it fit. And what that means is there's no support at the back of the keyboard in the middle, so you don't have to press it hard for it to actually bend, and that can't be doing the membrane any good over time. And that brings me to another point, the membrane. It's glued on. It's really cheap and really nasty, and if they just spent that little bit of extra time and a tiny bit more money and just bolted a back plate to the back of it to hold it in place, then I wouldn't have had the problem with the failing glue, for example. Just little things like that just make me think this is a little bit cheap and nasty. Although I think it did cost £50 back in the day, and in 1984 that wasn't to be sniffed at. Whereas you could get the DK-Tronics case with its mechanical switches for £45, and in my opinion a much more sturdy, robust build than this. But don't get your knickers in a twist. If you've got one of these and you love it and you think I'm panning it, that's just my opinion. You may have a different opinion. By all means, let me know in the comments. Just don't be one of those people that tells me what I can and can't say, please, because I really hate that. But yeah, summary, I think it's a lovely looking thing. I think keys feel really nice, but I think there's a cheapness to it. I think there's some serious build quality issues with the keyboard that actually flexes in the middle, the membrane that's glued on, that ridiculous gap at the back of the computer, although I suppose it's good for cooling. It just feels a little bit cheap and nasty in places to me. Anyway, let's plug it in and see how it actually functions. Right, it's shaky camera time, so we're powered up and all is well. Nice steady picture now since I did that composite mod. And like I said before, all the keys seem to work just fine, and it works, well, exactly like a Spectrum keyboard would. So you've got obviously your QWERTY keyboard, and you've got your cap shift and your symbol shift. In fact, there's 4 symbol shift keys, but they work in the same way as the others do. But then it starts getting a bit quirky. So you've got things over here, like you've got run, list, load, save, and they look like shortcut keys. And I suppose they're not really shortcut keys. They're just mapped to the R key, the K key, the J key, the S key. That's all it does. So yeah, I press the run key, and it will say run, obviously because it's a shortcut. But you press it again, yeah, it's just mapped to the R key. I might as well just press the R key. So I don't see any advantage to actually having that. It's the same throughout, and you've got what have we got? We've got a colon and a semicolon there. So if I press the semicolon, no, it's mapped to the OK, colon, Z key. So, I mean, I suppose it would make it easier to find these characters if they've got a key of their own, but I'm just not sure how much that adds to the experience. I don't know. I suppose it depends what you're using the keyboard for. It would be handy to have those keys separately, but why couldn't they do it in the same way that they did on the Plus case, in that you press a quote key, for example, and you just get the quote up. Same with the delete key. So what do you think the delete key does? Yeah, if you said it's mapped to the 0, you'd be right. That's all it does. Yet on the Plus keyboard, the delete key deletes things. So with a change to the keyboard membrane, they could have done the same, surely. But I mean, it kind of makes it easier, I suppose, because you've got the cap shift key right next to it. So to delete, you just hold that down, and that would be your delete. Things like that. It's just a little bit quirky. Graphics key, that's mapped to number 9. So be cap shift and G for graphics. It kind of means maybe it's a little bit easier to get to the different modes because you've got more keys, but they just feel a little redundant to me. I don't know. Maybe you had one of these and maybe you were a coder and you found it very, very useful. Let me know. I don't know. I think for the casual hobbyist, I don't think it's necessary, really. I think they could have made the keyboard smaller, maybe saved a few quid and maybe passed that saving on to the consumer. I don't know. I've got very, very mixed feelings on this keyboard. I think it looks nice, it feels nice, but I think there's a certain cheapness to it that I don't like. Yeah, I think if I'd bought it back in the day, I would have, if I'd been given the choice between this and the DK-Tronics, I'd have definitely gone for the DK-Tronics. And if I'm being completely honest, I preferred the Sinclair Plus keyboard to this as well. I think it works better. It doesn't have quite the same... keys don't feel as nice, is what I'm trying to say, on the Plus keyboard as they do on this. But I think in terms of functionality, the Plus keyboard works better than this. But that's my opinion. But what do you think? Did you have one? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you try to stuff the circuit board inside the keyboard instead of mounting it properly? I don't know. Let me know if you had one and let me know what you thought of it. You might have loved it. I'm not so keen myself, but that's, like I said, that's just my opinion. Anyway, I'll leave this here. I'll say thanks as always for watching, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one, assuming I make another one soon. really don't know at the moment. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.